I never expected the past to knock on my door again, especially not after 13 years of silence. That Saturday afternoon felt ordinary at first. I was barefoot in my kitchen, sunlight spilling across the marble floor, preparing to bake a chocolate-covered carrot cake, Daniel's favorite. Even after all these years, my hands remembered the recipe without thinking, as if muscle memory still believed I was baking for a son who would come home smiling, asking if it was ready yet. A son who used to sit at the counter, stealing carrot shavings when he thought I wasn't looking. The doorbell rang. For a brief second, my heart fluttered with an impossible hope. Maybe it was a neighbor. Maybe it was nothing. But when I wiped my hands on a towel and opened the door, the air changed instantly. The warmth of the kitchen vanished, replaced by something cold and sharp, like winter sneaking into summer. Daniel stood there, 13 years older, 13 years harder. Beside him was Amanda, her manicured hand wrapped tightly around his arm, as if marking territory. At their feet sat several luxury suitcases, polished and expensive, the kind that whispered money without saying a word. No hug. No, Mom, I missed you. No apology. "We need to talk," Daniel said flatly. "Can we come in?" It wasn't a question. It was a command dressed up as politeness. I stepped aside, my chest tight, my mind racing. They walked past me as if they still lived there, as if time had frozen 13 years ago, and I was merely a caretaker in a house that belonged to them by right. Amanda slowly removed her sunglasses, her eyes scanning the vaulted ceilings, the crystal chandelier, the polished marble floors. Her smile wasn't warm. It was calculating. "Beautiful house," she said coolly. "So spacious. Must be a lot of empty rooms." The words landed like a slap. I sat across from them, forcing my spine straight, even though my hands trembled in my lap. Daniel dropped onto the sofa, relaxed, familiar. Amanda crossed her legs, perfectly composed, like a queen inspecting new territory. "Mom," Daniel began, and that single word sliced through me deeper than any insult. "We're distant." Distant, as if it had been mutual, as if I hadn't written letters that came back unopened, as if Amanda once looked me in the eye and said, "You're not welcome here anymore." But I stayed quiet, not because I forgave him, but because some fragile part of me still wanted to believe he was here for love. "We've missed you so much," Amanda added softly, placing a hand on Daniel's knee in a performance of affection. "And when we heard how successful you've become," she paused deliberately, "we thought it was time to reconnect, to be a family again." There it was. Not me, not us, the success. "How did you find out?" I asked calmly. "A friend saw an article," Daniel replied. "Business magazine, 6 stores, millions in revenue. You're quite the role model." The fake pride made my stomach twist. "So why are you here?" I asked. Amanda leaned forward, her tone dripping with false concern. "You're living alone in this big house. What if something happens? A fall, a heart attack?" She smiled. "We want to be here for you. We'll move in." Move in? "And as your only son," she continued, "Daniel naturally has a right to the property. It'll be his one day anyway, right?" The mask slipped. They didn't come back because they missed me. They came because they smelled money. I looked at Daniel, really looked at him. 41 years old, the boy I once rocked to sleep, now a stranger shaped by greed. "Did you bring Gabriel?" I asked suddenly. Daniel froze. "My grandson, he must be 15 now. Does he know you're here?" A quick glance passed between Daniel and Amanda, too fast to be innocent. "He's busy with school," Daniel said. "Teenagers, you know." I nodded, even though my stomach clenched. Lies always sounded like that. "I see," I said, standing. "You must be tired. I'll show you to a room, for a few days." Amanda's smile widened, triumphant. As I walked upstairs, my mind was already clear. They had no idea who they were dealing with anymore. The woman they threw out 13 years ago, the one who slept on a friend's couch and sold baked goods door to door, had learned one thing the hard way: never let anyone make a fool of you again. That night, as Amanda inspected the house and Daniel made himself at home, memories pulled me backward in time to the day my life first shattered. The day David, my husband, died. He was 62, a heart attack in his sleep. I woke up to silence that felt wrong, turned towards him and found him cold. No goodbye, no warning, just gone. At the funeral, Daniel barely looked at me. Amanda scrolled through her phone as if attending a boring meeting. They left early, saying Gabriel, barely 2 years old, couldn't stay with the babysitter too long. 3 days later, Daniel came back with Amanda and a lawyer. "Mom, we need to talk about the house," he said, sitting where he used to eat breakfast as a boy. The lawyer explained everything in calm, practiced words. The house was partially Daniel's. David had left him 50%. I hadn't known. My own husband had never told me. "We need the house," Amanda said smoothly. "We're in debt. You don't really need something this big." "You're kicking me out," I whispered, "out of my own home." "Don't be dramatic," Daniel said. "It's just a change of address." 3 weeks. That's what they gave me to dismantle a lifetime. On moving day, I packed my life into 2 suitcases and a few boxes. Photos, a tea set, an old clock from my grandmother. "Leave the clock," Amanda said. "It matches my decor." I clutched it to my chest and walked out anyway. When the door shut behind me, I collapsed on the sidewalk and cried until my throat burned and the sky went dark. That was the woman they thought they were walking back into, but that woman no longer existed. And as I stood in my mansion years later, listening to Amanda decide which room would be hers, one truth burned brighter than all the others. If they wanted to play games, I would make the rules this time, and the ending would not be kind. That first night after Daniel and Amanda settled in, I barely slept. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to unfamiliar footsteps echo through halls that were once silent. Every sound felt intrusive, like fingerprints on glass. Downstairs, drawers opened and closed, doors creaked. Laughter, soft, careless laughter, floated up the staircase, and each sound reminded me of something I had sworn never to forget. They were already acting like the house belonged to them. Early the next morning, I woke before sunrise out of habit. Baking had trained my body better than any alarm clock ever could. I padded into the kitchen and began preparing my Saturday cheesecake, a ritual I'd kept for myself for years. It was the one thing I hadn't shared with anyone since my life fell apart. Halfway through mixing, I heard footsteps behind me. "Morning, Mom," Daniel said casually. I turned to see him wearing a white bathrobe. My bathrobe, from the master bathroom. "You didn't need to," I started. "Oh, I forgot mine in the suitcase," he interrupted, already opening the fridge. "Hope you don't mind." He took out the cheesecake, cut himself a slice, then another. No waiting, no asking, just taking. Behind him, Amanda entered, pouring coffee from a porcelain pot Walter had given me for my birthday. She added milk, spilling a few drops onto the linen tablecloth. She didn't wipe it. "I've been thinking," she said lightly. "This house is lovely, but the decor feels a bit dated. The wallpaper especially, and the curtains are so heavy. We should change them." "We?" "I like them," I replied evenly. She smiled, the kind of smile meant to soothe a child. When people get older, their sense of style slips a little. Totally normal. That's why younger people help refresh things. Daniel said nothing. He just kept eating. By the 3rd day, the politeness vanished completely. I returned from a supplier meeting to find Amanda sitting in my private office, my chair, my desk, my computer screen glowing. "What are you doing?" I asked. She turned slowly, unfazed. "You left your computer unlocked. That's not safe, mother-in-law." My chest tightened. "It's password protected." "Oh," she said casually. "Daniel guessed it. Your husband's birthday. Too easy." I felt something cold move through me. Not fear, clarity. I asked, "What did you look at?" She replied, "Just trying to understand your business. Daniel needs to know how to run things when you can't anymore." "I'm still managing 6 stores," I said sharply. "I don't need help." She leaned back, her smile thinning. "You're almost 70. Old people forget things, sign the wrong papers, make bad decisions. That's how they lose everything. We're here to prevent that." That night, I didn't go to bed. I pressed a glass against the wall separating my bedroom from the guest living room. An old trick, but it worked. "She's stubborn," Daniel whispered. "She won't hand it over." "Relax," Amanda replied, her voice sharp as ice. "I took photos of her documents. I already sent them to the lawyer." "What lawyer?" Daniel asked. "The one who knows how to handle cases like this. If we prove she's mentally unfit, the court will remove her financial control. Then everything becomes ours." My hands trembled. "But she doesn't seem senile," Daniel hesitated. "That's because you're blind," Amanda snapped. "I'll start planting doubts. Ask her the same questions twice. Record it. A few videos and a medical note will do." "And Gabriel?" Daniel asked quietly. "He can't know," Amanda replied. "If he finds out she's fine, he'll come here. We can't let that happen, not until the money's secured." I lowered the glass, my heart pounding so loudly I was afraid they'd hear it. They weren't here to reconnect. They were here to destroy me. I texted Walter immediately. "I need a private investigator and security cameras today." His reply came within seconds. "Already on it. Stay strong." The next morning, I became exactly who Amanda wanted me to be. I wore a soft floral dress. I moved slowly. I pretended to forget where I put my phone. I called Daniel by his father's name once, then apologized. I let my hands shake just enough. Amanda's eyes lit up. Over the next 3 days, she recorded everything. My pauses, my questions, my fake confusion. She smiled every time, convinced she was winning. What she didn't know was that 5 hidden cameras had already been installed. My office, the living room, the kitchen, the hallway, and their guest room. Every whisper, every lie, uploaded straight to a secure cloud. On Friday afternoon, the private investigator, Richard, handed me his report. I locked the door and read, "Daniel Carter, nearly $400,000 in gambling debt, lawsuits, foreclosure, no fixed address. Amanda Carter, frozen credit cards, an embezzlement case, a repossession order." Then my hands froze. Gabriel Carter, age 15, living with his maternal uncle. Parents temporarily lost custody due to neglect. My grandson, taken from them, lied to, hidden from me. That night, I watched the footage, Daniel photographing my documents, Amanda negotiating with a corrupt lawyer, edited videos designed to make me look confused. I called my attorney, Henry Vaughn, and told him everything. "This is fraud," he said gravely. "Attempted asset seizure. Do you want them gone or do you want justice?" "I want my grandson, then justice." Saturday morning, Amanda announced a dinner party. "A family gathering," she said sweetly. "Just close friends. You only need to show up." It wasn't a party. It was a stage, and they planned to perform my downfall in front of witnesses. "Lovely idea," I said, lifting my teacup with shaking hands. "It'll be nice to have everyone together again." When she walked away, I texted Henry, "That's when they'll move." He replied, "Then that's when we end it." As I stood alone in the kitchen afterwards, staring at the reflection of an old woman they thought they could erase, a thought settled deep in my chest. They believed the story was ending in their favor. They had no idea the most important character hadn't entered the scene yet, and when he did, everything would change. Tuesday afternoon changed everything. I had just returned from a supplier meeting, my mind still busy with cocoa prices and delivery schedules, when the doorbell rang. I frowned. Daniel and Amanda had said they would be out all day. For a brief second, an uneasiness crawled up my spine, the kind you feel before bad news arrives. When I opened the door, my breath caught in my throat. A tall, thin teenage boy stood there, his shoulders tense, an old backpack hanging from one strap. His hair was messy, his face pale from travel, but his eyes, those eyes hit me like a memory I couldn't escape. They were Daniel's eyes. "Are you Mrs. Stephanie?" he asked quietly, his voice shaking. My knees nearly gave out. "Gabriel?" I whispered. He swallowed hard, as if hearing his name confirmed something he'd barely dared to hope. Tears welled up instantly. "It's really you," he said. "You're real. You're my grandmother." I didn't think, I didn't speak, I just opened my arms. The boy I hadn't seen since he was 2 years old stepped forward and broke down in my embrace, sobbing with the raw pain of a child who had carried too much for too long. I held him tightly, feeling his thin shoulders shake, my own tears soaking into his hair. "Come in, sweetheart," I whispered, closing the door quickly behind us. "You're safe here." In the kitchen, I poured him a glass of orange juice. His hands trembled so badly that he nearly dropped it. I sat beside him, took his cold hands in mine, and tried to keep my voice steady. "How did you find me?" I asked gently. "They lied to me," Gabriel said, wiping his face. "About everything. About you." My heart clenched. All my life, they told me my grandmother died in a car accident when I was little. I believed them. Then 3 months ago, I was looking for my birth certificate, and I found a box under my parents' bed. My breath caught. There were letters, dozens, all addressed to me, all signed Grandma Stephanie. The letters I had written, every birthday, every holiday, every year until I couldn't bear the silence anymore. "They never gave them to you?" I whispered. He shook his head. "No, they hid them, and when I read them, I knew you weren't dead. No one who writes like that could be insane or dangerous." He reached into his backpack and pulled out an old envelope. I recognized my handwriting instantly. "My dearest grandson." My vision blurred as tears streamed down my face. "I confronted them," Gabriel said softly. "Dad got angry, said you were crazy, that you tried to kidnap me when I was little, but I didn't believe him." "Why?" I asked. "Because liars don't write letters filled with that much love." I pulled him into another hug, my heart breaking and healing all at once. "I started searching online. I found your bakery, the articles, your picture. That's when I realized why they lied." He looked up at me, his young face far older than it should have been. "They were ashamed and desperate." "They came here for you, didn't they?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "They want your money," Gabriel said. "They'll do anything to get it. You have to be careful." "I know," I said calmly, "and I'm handling it." A knock of fear crossed his face. "Do they know I'm here?" "No," I said firmly, "and they won't. Not yet." I made a decision in that moment, one that felt as natural as breathing. "You're staying here," I told him, "tonight, and after that, we'll do this the right way, legally." His eyes filled with relief and terror at the same time. "Please don't make me go back," he whispered. "I can't." "You won't. No one will ever take you away from me again." I called Henry immediately and told him everything. "This changes everything," he said. "With Gabriel here, we can file for temporary custody today. With your stability and records, no judge will deny it." "Do it," I said without hesitation. By the time I hung up, Gabriel was exhausted. I took him upstairs to a hidden guest room on the 3rd floor, one Daniel and Amanda didn't even know existed. "You'll stay here quietly," I told him. "They can't know you here yet." He nodded. "I trust you, Grandma." As I stepped back downstairs, keys turned in the lock. They were home. I took a deep breath, slipped my harmless old lady mask back into place, and walked into the hallway with a gentle smile. "Hello, you two," I said sweetly. "Everything all right?" Amanda smiled back, that familiar fake smile. "Perfect. And Saturday's dinner, it's going to be unforgettable." She was right, but not for the reasons she thought. Because the game they believed they were controlling had just slipped completely out of their hands, and soon every lie would collapse under its own weight. The next 5 days felt longer than the 13 years I had lived without my son. Every morning, I woke before Daniel and Amanda, careful not to make a sound as I climbed the stairs to the hidden 3rd floor room. Gabriel stayed exactly where I told him to, quiet, alert, trusting. I brought him food only when the house was empty or when Amanda was too busy rearranging my life downstairs to notice anything else. He ate like a child who hadn't felt safe in a long time. Not fast, not greedy, just cautiously, as if the food might disappear if he didn't stay grateful enough. But hunger wasn't what he craved most. It was peace. We spoke in whispers. He told me about school, about pretending everything was fine when it wasn't, about the fear that lived in his chest every time his parents fought over money. I told him about the early days of Sweet Stephanie, about baking through the night in a borrowed kitchen, about learning that exhaustion hurts less than hopelessness. "You never gave up," Gabriel said one night, looking at me with quiet awe. "No," I replied softly. "I just learned how to survive." Downstairs, Amanda turned my home into a battlefield disguised as a celebration. Decorators came and went. Caterers hauled in crates of expensive food, new tables, crystal glasses, fresh flowers, everything charged to my credit card, the same one she had borrowed earlier in the week, claiming hers was acting strange. I let her spend. Every receipt was another nail in her coffin. On Thursday afternoon, the doorbell rang again. This time, it was a man I had been expecting, Mr. Clayton. Short, stocky, gold ring flashing under the light, cheap suit trying too hard to look expensive. His smile was smooth, practiced, the kind men wear when they believe they're about to win. "Mrs. Stephanie," he said warmly, shaking my hand. "Such a pleasure to finally meet you." "I'm sure," I replied gently. He opened his briefcase and laid out 3 documents on the table. A full power of attorney, a revised will, and a routine medical consent form. Simple things, just formalities. I picked up the papers, squinting, pretending to struggle with the fine print. So many words. I need time to think. Amanda's face tightened instantly. "These are urgent. You don't need to overthink everything." "My lawyer always says never to sign without reading," I replied sweetly. The room froze. "Lawyer?" Daniel blurted. "You have a lawyer?" "Of course," I said calmly. "Henry Vaughn. He's handled my affairs for years." Clayton quickly gathered the papers. Then it's best we revisit this later. That night, I heard Amanda shouting in the kitchen. "She's got a lawyer. Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't know," Daniel muttered. "Find out who he is. If he's any good, we're finished." They were right. Friday night, Henry called. "Temporary guardianship for Gabriel is approved. It becomes official Monday. The criminal case is ready. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy. 17 pieces of evidence." I closed my eyes, relief washing over me. "Tomorrow," he continued, "I'll attend the dinner with 2 deputies. You give the signal." "What signal?" "You'll know," he said. Upstairs, I sat beside Gabriel on his bed. "Tomorrow is going to be hard, but you need to be brave." "I am," he said quietly. "They're not my parents anymore." Saturday arrived like a storm pretending to be sunshine. By evening, the house was full. Relatives, old neighbors, strangers, friends of Daniel and Amanda, carefully chosen to be witnesses. Amanda's brother, Mark, was there too, looking uneasy, tired, guilty. She seated me at the head of the table like a fragile centerpiece. Simple dress, no makeup, hair loosely pinned, exactly how she wanted me to look. Then Daniel stood, tapping his glass. "I've been away from my mother for too long," he said, voice trembling just enough. "When I learned what she'd built, we knew we had to come back to take care of her." Eyes turned toward me. "We're moving in permanently, and with her approval, we'll take over the business to protect her legacy." "Mom," he said softly, "you agree, don't you?" Silence. I lifted my head slowly and smiled. "No," I said clearly, "I absolutely do not agree." The room froze. I stood, my voice steady, powerful. "You think I'm confused. You think I'm weak, but I know everything." I pressed the remote. The screen lit up. Daniel stealing documents, Amanda conspiring with a lawyer, edited videos, lies, plans. Gasps filled the room. "You tried to erase me once. Now you tried to steal from me, and you failed." The doorbell rang. "Perfect timing," I said calmly. When "Amanda Carter, you are under investigation for fraud and attempted exploitation." The party was over, and the reckoning had just begun. The room didn't erupt into chaos the way movies pretend it does. It went silent first. The kind of silence that presses against your ears, heavy and suffocating, where no one knows where to look or what to say next. Every face at the table froze somewhere between shock and disbelief. Daniel stood motionless, his mouth slightly open, as if words were trying to escape but couldn't find the courage. Amanda, on the other hand, recovered quickly, too quickly. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, forcing a laugh that sounded sharp and hollow. "This is a misunderstanding. You're humiliating your own family." Family. That word no longer held power over me. Henry stepped forward calmly, placing a thick folder on the table. "This is not a misunderstanding. This is documented evidence. Videos, recordings, text messages, financial records, and witness testimony." He opened the folder and slid the contents across the table. Carter, nearly $400,000 in gambling debt, foreclosed home, no fixed address. He turned slightly. Amanda Carter, embezzlement settlement unpaid, multiple frozen credit cards, vehicle repossession order. Gasps rippled through the guests. Mark, Amanda's brother, shot to his feet. "You told me you were fine," he said, his voice shaking. "You said you had jobs, that you were getting Gabriel back next week." Amanda spun toward him. "Sit down. This is none of your business." "It is my business," he shot back. "You dumped your son on me and vanished." I took a step forward. "Let's talk about Gabriel," I said quietly. The room stilled again. "You told everyone he was too busy with school, but the truth is you lost custody, neglect, debt." Henry finally spoke, his voice barely audible. "Mom, please." "You don't get to interrupt me," I said firmly. "Not today." My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, from the years. Throughout 3 days after I buried my husband, you erased me from your child's life. You told my grandson I was dead. Amanda jumped up. "That was his idea." "Sit down," one of the deputies warned. Amanda froze. "I rebuilt my life from nothing, from couches and markets, and nights where I cried myself to sleep, wondering how my own child could hate me so deeply. And when you heard I had money, you didn't come back to apologize. You came back to steal." Daniel's shoulders collapsed inward, like a man finally crushed by his own choices. "I think you think I'm weak," I asked, scanning the room. "I was lucid when I installed cameras, lucid when I hired a private investigator, lucid when I planned this moment." I turned toward the staircase. "Gabriel," I called softly. A collective breath was sucked from the room. Slow footsteps echoed as my grandson appeared at the top of the stairs, pale, steady, brave in a way that broke my heart. He descended one step at a time until he stood beside me. "I live here," Gabriel said quietly, "with my grandmother." Amanda screamed. "She kidnapped my son!" Henry didn't even flinch. "Mrs. Carter has legal temporary guardianship, granted yesterday, permanent custody hearing scheduled next week." Daniel stared at his son like he was seeing him for the first time. "Gabriel, I love you." Gabriel didn't let go of my hand. "Love isn't lying," he said simply. "Love doesn't erase people." That broke something in Daniel completely. The deputy stepped forward. "You have 2 hours to pack essential belongings. Anything left behind stays." Amanda lunged toward me. "You'll regret this, you miserable old woman." A hand landed firmly on her arm. "Another word and you'll be arrested immediately." She went silent. Suitcases were dragged, doors slammed upstairs, guests slipped out quietly, unable to meet my eyes. Within minutes, the grand dinner table sat untouched, food growing cold beneath crystal chandeliers. At the door, Daniel stopped. "I lost everything," he whispered. "My wife, my house, my son." "No," I replied calmly. "You gave it away." He looked at Gabriel one last time. "I'm sorry." Gabriel didn't answer. The door closed behind them with a sound that echoed through the house like finality. For the first time in 13 years, I felt something unfamiliar settle in. Peace. But justice wasn't finished yet, and neither was the story. The house felt different after the door slammed shut behind Daniel and Amanda. Not empty, not quiet, clean, as if years of lies had been scrubbed out of the walls. The deputies stayed until the 2 hours were up, standing watch while suitcases were dragged down the stairs, drawers slammed, and whispered arguments turned into bitter silence. Amanda never looked at me again, her mascara streaked, her jaw tight with rage, but there was something else there too, fear. Real fear, the kind that comes when manipulation finally stops working. Daniel avoided my eyes until the very end. When they were gone, truly gone, the silence returned. But this time, it didn't hurt. Gabriel let out a shaky breath and leaned into me. "Is it really over, Grandma?" I wrapped my arm around him. "That part is." But I knew better. Consequences don't end at the door. They follow you into courtrooms. 2 days later, we stood inside the downtown courthouse. High ceilings, cold benches, the sound of shoes echoing on marble floors. Gabriel sat beside me, his hand tightly gripping mine. Henry sat on my other side, calm and prepared, a stack of files arranged with military precision. Across the room, Daniel and Amanda entered with their new lawyer. They looked smaller here. Judge Marianne Foster entered and scanned the room with sharp, experienced eyes. Case number 4872, Stephanie Carter versus Daniel Carter and Amanda Carter. As the evidence was presented, videos, recordings, texts, falsified documents, I watched Daniel's shoulders sink lower with each minute. Amanda sat stiffly, arms crossed, refusing to look at the screen even once. When it was over, the judge removed her glasses. Financial stress is not an excuse for fraud, nor is it justification for attempting to declare a competent woman mentally unfit. She struck the gavel. Restraining order upheld, criminal charges proceed, and regarding custody, permanent guardianship of Gabriel Carter is granted to Mrs. Stephanie Carter. I felt Gabriel's grip tighten, then loosen, like he could finally breathe. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Questions, flashing lights. Mrs. Carter, do you have a statement? I shook my head. This was a family matter. The law handled it. That's enough. At home that night, Gabriel sat quietly at the kitchen table while I made soup. Grandma, he asked softly, do you think they'll go to prison? I don't know, I admitted, but whatever happens, it won't change what they already lost. Weeks later, Henry called. They're offering a plea deal, Henry said. Community service, probation, no prison time if you drop the civil damages. I looked out the window. Gabriel was in the yard, laughing with a neighbor's son, finally acting his age. Accept it, I said. I'm done fighting. The deal was signed. Daniel and Amanda pleaded guilty, 1 year of community service, mandatory therapy, the restraining order remained. Life slowly began to settle. Months passed. Gabriel gained weight, color returned to his face. He smiled more, slept through the night, helps me in the bakeries on weekends, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. One rainy afternoon, my phone rang. It was Carol. She said, I saw your son today, quietly. My chest tightened. He looks broken, she continued. Lost weight, looks exhausted. Amanda left him, packed up and disappeared. I closed my eyes. He cried in the grocery store, Terrell said he's lost everything. After the call, I sat alone for a long time. That night, Gabriel noticed. You're thinking about him, he said. Yes, I admitted, but thinking doesn't mean going back. He nodded thoughtfully. You taught me something, he said. Helping someone doesn't mean saving them from consequences. I smiled sadly. You're wiser than you know. A week later, Henry forwarded me something. A letter from Daniel. I read it alone. No excuses, no demands, just remorse. I don't expect forgiveness, he wrote. I just wanted you to know you were right. My hands trembled as I folded the paper. Some wounds don't heal with apologies. They heal with distance, and sometimes with time. But just when I thought the hardest chapters were behind us, life reminded me of one truth. Healing is never a straight line, and the past doesn't disappear quietly. It waits. Time doesn't heal wounds the way people like to pretend it does. It doesn't erase them, it reshapes them. Months passed after the court hearings, and life slowly began to find a new rhythm. Not the life I once imagined, not the life I lost, but something steadier, truer. Gabriel settled into routines that felt almost ordinary. School in the mornings, homework at the kitchen table, weekends at the bakery, where the scent of sugar and chocolate wrapped around him like a promise that some things in this world could still be sweet. He started smiling again. Not the polite, careful smile of a child trying not to cause trouble, but real laughter, the kind that comes from the chest, the kind that tells you safety has finally arrived. One evening, as I was closing the bakery, Gabriel helped me wipe down the counters. He moved confidently now, like he belonged there. "Grandma," he said suddenly, "do you ever regret it?" I paused. "Regret what, sweetheart?" "Not sending them to prison," he said quietly. "You could have." I leaned against the counter, thinking carefully. "Revenge looks powerful from the outside," I said, "but it keeps you chained to the people who hurt you. I didn't want my future tied to their punishment." He nodded slowly, absorbing that in a way only someone forced to grow up too early can. "I don't miss them," he admitted, "but sometimes I miss who I wish they were." My heart tightened. "That's grief," I said softly, "and it's allowed." A few weeks later, Henry called with an update. Daniel completed more than his required community service hours, he said. He kept going after he didn't have to. The supervisor says the residents adore him. I closed my eyes, conflicted. Later that night, a handwritten envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address. I knew who it was from before I opened it. Daniel's handwriting had changed, less confident, more careful. He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't even ask for a reply. He wrote about working long shifts, about volunteering at the senior center, about how reading to an old man who reminded him of his father forced him to confront the man he had become. He ended the letter with one sentence that stayed with me long after I folded the page. "The worst punishment isn't losing everything, it's realizing too late what mattered most." I placed the letter in my desk drawer, beside the others. I didn't answer. Not because I was cruel, but because healing cannot be rushed. Years passed. Sweet Stephanie grew from 6 stores to more than 20. Gabriel, now older and stronger, began studying business formally. He brought ideas to the table, marketing strategies, expansion plans, franchise models. Sometimes I'd watch him talk and see the echo of who Daniel could have been had life taken a different turn. One afternoon, while we were reviewing numbers, Gabriel looked up. "Grandma," he said carefully, "I think I'm ready to talk to him." My breath caught. "Are you sure?" "No," he said honestly, "but I don't want anger deciding my future." We met Daniel in my living room weeks later. No lawyers, no accusations, just 3 people sitting in the quiet truth of what had been broken. Daniel didn't defend himself. He didn't blame Amanda. He didn't ask for reconciliation. He just wanted to tell you both, "I'm trying, that's all." When he left, "Thank you for letting me choose," he whispered. That's when I understood something that took me decades to learn. Justice isn't about winning, forgiveness isn't about forgetting, and family isn't about blood, it's about who protects you when it matters most. Today, as I stand in my kitchen baking carrot cake again, Gabriel laughs behind me, stealing a piece when he thinks I'm not looking. The same recipe, a different life. The doorbell rings. I don't flinch anymore. Because whatever waits on the other side of that door, I know who I am now, and I know my worth. Some stories don't end with revenge. They end with peace. And that is the hardest victory of all. 5 years have passed since the night my past tried to steal my future. Time didn't rush. It moved carefully, like it knew how fragile healing can be. The house that once felt too large now feels exactly the right size, not because the walls changed, but because the people inside it did. Gabriel is no longer the frightened boy who showed up at my door with a backpack and shaking hands. He stands taller now, stronger. His voice carries confidence, not fear. He helps manage the bakeries, not because he has to, but because he believes in what we built together. Sometimes when I watch him explain ideas to the staff, I see something extraordinary. Not ambition fueled by greed, but purpose shaped by truth. One afternoon, while we were reviewing new franchise locations, Gabriel looked up from his notes. "Grandma," he said, smiling, "we just signed 5 more franchise deals." I laughed softly. 5? I can't even keep track anymore." "I learned from the best," he replied, stealing a pinch of shredded carrot from the counter like a mischievous child. That simple moment, flour on the counter, sunlight in the kitchen, laughter without fear, felt like victory in its purest form. Sweet Stephanie now spans multiple states, not because I chased money, but because I refused to let betrayal define me. Every store employs people who needed a second chance, single mothers, older women restarting their lives, young people searching for direction. The business became more than profit, it became proof. Walter passed away peacefully 2 years ago. On his desk, I later learned he had written one sentence: "She turned pain into purpose." His shares now fund women over 50 who are brave enough to begin again. His legacy lives on quietly, just like he would have wanted. As for Daniel, he exists at the edges of my life. He runs a small bakery now, modest, honest. He works with his hands, wakes early, cleans his own floors. He comes to family gatherings sometimes, holidays, birthdays, always respectful, always distant. He never asks for forgiveness. He never asks for more than he deserves. And that distance? It's not punishment. It's balance. One evening after Gabriel returned from college for the weekend, he found me in the kitchen baking carrot cake, the very recipe that started everything. "Funny," he said thoughtfully, "if someone had told me years ago that my life would look like this, I wouldn't have believed them." "Are you happy?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then he smiled, the kind of smile that comes from peace. "Very," he said, "because you taught me something most people never learn." "What's that?" I asked. "That falling doesn't ruin you. Staying down does." I hugged him, my heart full in a way words can't explain. Later that night, alone on the porch, I looked up at the quiet sky and thought about the woman I once was, sleeping on a friend's couch, clutching suitcases, believing life had ended. And I smiled, not with bitterness, but gratitude. Because betrayal didn't destroy me, it rebuilt me. Justice didn't come in anger, it came in freedom. And forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, it meant choosing peace over poison. If someone listening to this story is standing in the ruins of their own life, wondering if it's too late, let me tell you this: it is never too late to start again. It is never wrong to protect yourself, and it is never weakness to walk away from those who only see your worth when they need something from you. This wasn't just my story. It might be yours too. So tell me, where would you draw the line between forgiveness and self-respect?